Hi, everybody. It's Anna. So I thought I'd share with you a few of my thoughts in preparation for this Sunday's sermon. This Sunday is the last Sunday in the green season or the regular season before we begin the season of Advent in preparation for Christmas. So I think every year in the lectionary, the last Sunday in the green season focuses on the crucifixion. We're sort of closing the story with Jesus' crucifixion. So that is true of this year as well. And this year we're looking at the Gospel of Luke. That's where we've been working for the last few weeks. So it's Luke's version of the crucifixion. So I'm really focusing mainly on one verse from Luke this time, and it is the verse in which Jesus is crucified. He's on the cross, he's suffering, and he's dying. And he looks at those who are killing him, and he prays on their behalf. He says, God, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. So his last time on the earth is grounded in love and forgiveness. So I feel like that's a very powerful moment, right? But it's also, if you're familiar at all with the book I wrote about connecting the life of Christ with the major arcana, it's actually the cross, the experience on the crucifixion, with the crucifixion, I actually matched to the sun card in the major arcana. So while it's a very dark card, it was a dark time in the life of Christ. In fact, I was really surprised when I was setting it all out that the event of the crucifixion landed with the sun card. I had to really spend some time on that. The more time I spent on it, the more I realized this is kind of the moment of gloriousness for him. Not necessarily because he was sacrificing his life for the sake of others. That's atonement theory. It's a particular theory in Christian doctrine that I don't agree with necessarily. But because in this moment of extremity, he stays true to his calling. It doesn't matter what you do to this guy. At this point, he is about love and forgiveness. So he has kind of solidified that in himself to the point that it is a stable truth of who he is. And that is, I think, that the lesson of the sun card is, you're working through this journey, and at the point you get to the sun, you realize that this that you've been doing is who you are. It's not something you have to achieve or work at. You have to agree to who you are. And you're finally in agreement. You're ready to be the light you were here to be. So I thought about that moment of him looking at those who were killing him and offering forgiveness. And I thought the card I would connect to that would be the Five of Cups. So the number 5 connects to the point of challenge. It's the midway point in the journey where really it's kind of like this is your point of no return. This is where you have to commit and decide you're ready. You're ready to do the new thing, okay? And you're going to leave behind. So I always describe traveling the journeys like you're going up the mountain, right? Here's the tip of the mountain. You have to hit the gas now. Push past the tip of the mountain and continue on the rest of the journey. This is the point that if you don't meet this challenge, you slide back down the mountain. And we're using the cups, and the cups are connected to the heart. And they're about feeling connected to other people and emotionally fulfilled. And also being pretty grounded in your intuitive genius. And your intuitive genius is where your calling is. So basically feeling grounded in your calling. So this is the challenge to that calling. This is the point that you either make this or you don't. And the image shows a man looking at a home, and he's looking very sad, and it's as though he's been exiled from this home. So the feeling is heavy and grief-stricken and heartbroken. And there's actually 3 cups in front of him that are knocked over. So that represents the loss. So this card shows up when we're in the middle of, so the whole cups suit is about the expansion of our heart, the ability to receive more and more love, to walk in more and more grace for ourselves, but also so we can become a light of greater love for others. Here's our point of constriction. This is what's in the way of us accomplishing this work and expanding in the way we are being called to expand. Actually, it's funny because this week the tarot story also started with the Ace of Cups. So this is the theme is we're in the middle of expansion, but here we're stuck, right? So the question is, what do we do in this moment, right? What do we do about this? So when we have heartbreak and trauma in our lives and sadness, mostly, if you're coming from a strictly logical standpoint, what you do with that is you kind of you section off and move away. You kind of go on with your life. You can't just stay in grief forever. So because we don't know how to solve this moment, we kind of move on without it. But there's a part of us, this is this guy right here, that gets left behind. There's a part of us now that is cut off from expansion. And I think anytime we're doing any kind of work, but especially the Ace of Cups, starting with Ace of Cups, there's a part of us that's asking to be brought back into the circle, right? There's part of us that's being cut off, and we have to decide if we're gonna listen to this or not. Behind the man are 2 upright cups, so that's saying, if you can get if you can successfully negotiate this challenge, you can turn away from the loss, you release the loss, and you go on the path. And there's gifts ready for you. We're ready for you. We're ready to give you that expansion of love and possibility. But first, we have to negotiate this. So I always say this challenge is twofold. First of all, the challenge is acknowledging this is here. So many times, our minds will decide some great loss or some pain in our past is non-negotiable. Like we can't fix it. We don't know how to fix it. So we'll just forget it's there. We'll act like it, either we'll forget it happened at all, or we'll act like it wasn't that bad. It's not that bad. And when we do that, we're basically completely cutting this part of us off that's stuck in this moment of anguish. We're like, forget you, we're moving on. Right? So that is gaslighting ourselves. Now, there's nothing that strategically kind of makes sense if you're talking about survival. We don't have enough space. We don't know what to do. We have no access to fix this. If we don't leave it behind, it will take us under. That's the fear, right? So this is not a bad strategy, but I feel like when we are in the spiritual journey and we're kind of engaging these voices within ourselves, these calls within ourselves over and over again, eventually you're called to come back to this point. I think that's what's happening here in this. It's basically saying that loss that you've almost just ignored and forgotten about, it's time to look at that, right? But how do we, so first of all, it's acknowledging the deep pain that this guy's having. He's in terrible pain. And there's a part of us that's in that pain. And it's time to acknowledge that and to love that. And I feel like on the cross, in the crucifixion scene, I think Jesus is recognizing these people are in terrible pain, the people who are harming him. And that's because it harms us to harm others. So especially if the soldiers, he's talking about the soldiers, this is what they do on a regular basis. These Roman soldiers are overseeing the killing of people all the time. And their mind might be saying, well, it's the law, I'm just doing my job. And that's true, but it's costing them something internally. So I think when Jesus looks at them, he sees them with compassion because he realizes they're suffering. I mean, I would say worse than he is because they are not reconciled. You cannot be reconciled. I don't know, maybe if you're very damaged in some way, like I think they say psychopaths don't have any empathy, but that's a very odd, rare thing for a human, right? Most humans, it's a huge cost to them. And so he's looking at them saying, gosh, look at these people in such terrible pain. And I think some of his mother was there as well, so she's in terrible pain. So he's looking at these people that are unreconciled and in pain. And so that's part of the acknowledgement of them, not as enemies, not as the bad guys, but as people in pain. So we have to acknowledge this part of us is in pain and care about it. It matters that there's a part of us in pain. But the second piece is him forgiving. Saying, forgive them, like release them from this struggle, right? Release them. And that's what has to happen here too. Whatever this is, we acknowledge it, we feel it, and then we say, yes, we ought, because forgiveness is not just about a contract or like letting go of a debt, right? Forgiveness is about an energetic release of the bad thing. Like I give it love, I acknowledge it, and then I set it free. It is no longer, because the truth is forgiveness is about something that happened before. And in Jesus' case, it's happening right now. But at some point, his suffering's going to be over. He's going to die, and they're going to be left with this. So he's already thinking about the cost this will be to them later, right? So he's asking God to release them from this. And that's the same prayer here. Release them. Release me from this, right? So forgiveness is not just about, I feel like we often think forgiveness is about creating context around what someone did. So sort of saying, well, yeah, they hurt me, but they were struggling. They didn't mean it. We're giving an excuse to it, which is fine. That's kind of trying to create some grace within our minds. That's fine. But it's not just about understanding why someone did what they did. It's about finishing the experience, letting go of the entire experience, grieving it, and then releasing it so that it is no longer a living experience. This guy is not just exiled. He is actively feeling the loss of this. And at some point, if you do not learn how to do this, if every time you hit a challenge like this, you're not sure what to do about it and it stays in place, then it just keeps, you keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? That's the nature of life, is that we keep doing things that are not kind. We keep experiencing things that are not kind. And so kind of my lesson on Sunday is about, if we don't have forgiveness, our lives get smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think Jesus is trying to show at this moment where he is being wronged, he's being unjustly killed. I don't know if there's any time where killing is just, actually, but he's being, he's being killed. He knows already he wants to erase this. He wants to release this from these people's experiences, because there is no way. The way forward is much more halting if you don't have that. And I feel like this week we're looking at the Ace of Cups. It's like there's a part of us that's asking to be released so that we can move into the world with more fullness. The more limited we are, it's not just that our own experience is compromised, although it is. It's that now our calling is compromised more and more. So this Five of Cups moment is about acknowledging the loss and then successfully loving it and releasing it. And you can release it. There are ways, not just to forgive and give context that someone did, but actually release it energetically. And there's different ways to do that, right? But that's the goal here. If we don't release this man is not able to move on. He is stuck here. And at this point, when this comes up, this is showing us, yeah, we have to solve this now. Maybe we've been going on with our lives successfully for a while without acknowledging this. But when this time shows up for us, it's saying, now's the time. Now you're stuck. Now you're here with the guy. You're here with this guy, right? And so now the challenge is in front of you to take care of this. And I really love. I'm not sure how I'm gonna fully flesh this out, but this idea of the mind likes to hold on to. This is where the challenge is, right? Is we say, well, I'm going to forgive, but I'm not going to forget. That's not going to work because forgiving means I'm not holding a grudge against you. I'm not holding bad feelings against you. I don't know. You might be able to pull that off. But if the mind's remembering, that it is keeping track of all the bad things that happened, right? And the reason the mind does that is it thinks it's making things better for us. It thinks it's keeping us safe by keeping track of all the bad things, because if it keeps track of them, they won't happen again. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. But that's how the mind thinks it works. If I can make a map in my mind of all the bad things that happened, all the spots that happened, and I'll avoid all those spots. And but again, you're avoiding all the spots. You're avoiding having a friendship. You're avoiding falling in love. You're avoiding taking a risk. You're avoiding speaking out at your job. Whatever that you're avoiding, you're making your life smaller and smaller and smaller. So the theory is that makes you safer, but it just makes you smaller. So it's not just about forgiving, it's about forgetting. It's about the release of the energy here, so that he is no longer staring at this loss. He is turned away from it and moving on to the rest of his journey. And I feel like that was the blessing Jesus was offering from the cross, is the ability to be forgiven and released. And now whether you can do that for somebody else, I don't know that you can. I mean, I think that this is an individual journey, but I think he was mirroring it. Like he was releasing himself from holding a grudge, from being angry. He was saying, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And so he was already kind of releasing himself from this moment where I'm not going to hold on to this and hold a grudge and feel angry or feel hurt or I'm just going to offer love and release. And that is essentially what we are being asked to do at this point in our lives, to offer love and release. It is over. It is finished. And actually, those are his final words. It is finished, right? It is finished. We want to be finished with this so that we are fully free to move on. And so I think that's a really important moment in our lives where we realize that this is even possible. Because when this trauma happens, it's not possible it doesn't seem possible. It's probably not possible. There are times in our lives where we are traumatized, we're struggling, and all we can do is survive. It's just that we don't stay in those moments forever. If we will allow ourselves to grow past them and get some more energy and more support and just grow up a little bit, and we're willing, we come back here. And at this time, it is possible because we're ready to do this work and this release. So yeah, those are my thoughts for today. See you next time. Bye.